What's going on? It's a toy kind of mood, mates. The Drome. Welcome, but it's a G.I. Joe brand team takeover from Hasbro. And in the house of the Drome, we got Lenny and Tony. What's going on, guys?
What's going on, guys? Good to be here. Good to be in the Drome.
Yo, Joe, all the way. But first, before we get into it, I'm your host, Travis Moody, and I got the All-Star Squad. We formed two teams like Voltron today, so we're going with Dreadnought. What's up?
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
And KJ.
How's it going? Thanks for having us. It's so good to see you all.
And last but not least, my co-host with the most, Bobby Behar.
What's up, y'all?
They even got a G.I. Joe background today, just for you guys.
Love that. Nice to
Looking slick.
Great shirt, too.
You know, I had to go with it. I'll have to figure out how to tell my wife I got it. But, you know, I'll come later.
We got full beard gang, but let's get with the biggest beard of them all. Dreadnought Ryan, take it away. You got the intro. Go ahead, man.
So we just have to get you guys to admit that the Dreadnoughts are the greatest characters ever in G.I. Joe.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that one.
Yeah,
they're incredible.
Yeah.
In all seriousness,
we agree.
In all seriousness, though, which figure has been the one that you liked working on the most?
Tony, you go first.
Okay, I will go first. It's actually one of the first figures I got to work on with Lenny because I wasn't at the beginning of Classified, and one of the first ones that I got hit with was Major Blood, and I got him right here too, just because he's always on hand. But just creating the face deco for him. And he's just an awesome character. All the redesign stuff that Lenny did for him too, with his robot arm and everything. That one was the most. I was like, okay, I'm on G.I. Joe now. This is incredible. I had been working on a lot on Marvel Legends before this, and then coming onto the Joe team and helping Lenny out. Lenny kind of execute some of this deco stuff was awesome. So that one holds special. Me and Lenny probably would have said Serpentor at the same time, so I had to change it up as well.
I might have said Serpentor, and it's funny that you mentioned that, Tony, because when Tony came on, it was awesome. Like just like the level of knowledge that he has with figure painting is like it's beyond many people in the industry. So having him come join a team, help us execute what we're trying to do, especially on that figure. When we first got the sample in, he looks real. His stubble came out awesome, and that stuff can vary from figure to figure. So just having his expertise, that was one of my favorite figures to work on. I do have to say, just to redesign the robot arm. I love drawing and sketching, so figuring out the turns for that arm was super fun. But I think as of late, the ones that you guys have seen, I will say, and I'll show it to you now because you guys have only seen the pictures, and don't pay attention to the numbers on his head, is the Range Vipers. The Range Vipers, I think it is based on the Outback body, but coming up with all the mil-spec vest stuff and then reimagining how we were going to do some of I had like the bullet bandolier all over him and it went over his shoulders and stuff. That was going to inhibit articulation and a lot of kind of like movement and play. So it was fun to reimagine him in a more mil-spec sort of way. Fantasy, of course, with he's got the brain case, the neural sensors connected to his backpack and all that, which I don't know if you guys saw it, but it does connect to the back of his head. So it's pretty rad. It came out on the sample, but it will go in. You can take it out and put it in as you want. But it was really cool to work on it because, again, I love to reimagine all that tech stuff to be a little more realistic. So it was fun to get into the anatomy of the skull. As a kid, I loved that figure, but I always thought the skull was slightly a little off. So I was like, you know what? Let's make that skull look realistic. And I would imagine a new, like somebody in the military rocking a mask like that would have a realistic looking skull as opposed to a cartoony skull. So it was super fun to dive into that.
Baseball cap brim a little bit, right?
Yeah. So I was handling it more like a sun visor, right? Yeah. Because they're Range Vipers. They're always in the field, so they need to have everything on them that can make their lives not easier, but make their mission more effective. So something to protect their eyes. It's polarized lens glare. I'm going in the weeds. I'm sorry. That one. I really like making the Range Vipers.
and of course, since we're talking about to Dreadnought Ryan, Zartan was the best, obviously. Yeah. All right. Got to get that in.
Zartan was
Nice.
sick.
I think you guys answered my question actually, so I'll jump to it because I wanted to ask about like sci-fi and Flash and kind of the zany 90s characters, and then you showed, the Range Viper, and I was going to ask about possibly you going back to like those techie kind of aesthetics that you had in the classified wave 1, or would they be grounded? But it seems like there might be a meshing of both possibly
would
for
say-
some of those kind of characters.
Yeah, 100%. And definitely going to get into those characters at some point in time. I can't say when, because again, we can't speak to future projects, but if it was rad, we'll probably get to it. But to that regard, a lot like what you're seeing on some of the newer characters that have that sci-fi element, we're trying to keep it in that like kind of like mil specs, somewhat real, like kind of modern sci-fi does that, right? Like if you're going to make a railgun, it's going to look like as if it functions, and that's always the goal on classified. We're trying to make the designs look as if they function, even if they do look a little aged down. I still want to make it look like it's functioning. Like if it's going to be a railgun, we're going to put the fuses on the side to make it look like it like builds up its energy and charges out. It's kind of the fun part about designing them.
Or you make
yeah,
a giant gold scale bodysuit.
actually, we got in the details. It's
No,
funny
you
though,
didn't.
like Tony, you remember we were going on about like how the scale should move in that suit. So like how they move so that it could move with his body, because it's one of those tight skin tight suits, but it's covered in armor, right? That's what scales are essentially. So how would they shrink and increase and how would they move with his body? So yes, we will do sci-fi stuff, but we're gonna try to make it look even more real. We want to get better and better with every year, essentially with our
So it's
aesthetic.
possible to see a payload or a space shot then.
Maybe it depends on relevance and timing. There's other characters.
If there's one thing to say about me and Lenny, we live in the realm of ridiculousness too. So
Yeah.
if it's ridiculous, we want to get there at some point.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I think
KJ's
first and
up
foremost,
next.
we're kind of like design dorks. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it's like G.I. Joe is our first passion and love. I think a lot of toy designers, but I think it's design dorks. We just like stuff, and like how can we integrate it into the line and enrich the line more?
Lenny, I remember you saying that you love change. You are not afraid of change. That's one of the things that keeps the line fresh and vital.
Mhm.
So I wanted to ask both you and Tony, how difficult was the decision to change the overall look of Classified after Wave 1? We saw it really being aged up, a move away from futuristic firearms. The field variants were kind of an in-between to like what got us to figures like Outback and Recondo, Big Ben, that sort of thing. So were you worried about losing out on the newer fans, the younger fans that would have been or could still be the future generation of Joe collectors?
It's kind of a multiple part question. Tony, jump in as I'm talking, or you want to take it first? But I think
Go for it.
it was easier than we thought it was going to be. Again, like to our detriment, we read the comments entirely too much, I think. But at the same time though, it's part of research, right? So like as a designer, beyond being a G.I. Joe head or like being into like crazy zany stuff, you have to take in that criticism and you have to take in those comments. You got to pay attention to what people are reacting to. So with that in mind, you take that in, you digest it, and then you try to iterate it into a design that is going to fit for the brand and the brand's needs. Because again, you don't want something to get steered out of you don't want to get something gets steered into a direction because of a loud voice, but you got to pay attention to what's being said. So yes, we started going a little bit more towards that more realism, but we are trying to keep the elements that are going to push it into the future. And then I think too, when you look at a lot of like pop culture and movies and stuff like that that are coming out, like there are still movies where characters are in terrestrial or like I guess you would say today's technology that kids are seeing. So essentially, a lot of times GI Joes are archetypal, right? So like with Recondo, he's the archetypal jungle explorer guy. So he's going to be a character like that in a movie. So as we're learning the research and seeing what kids are liking, I mean, especially my nephews, they call them G-Joes and they love them. And they actually love a lot of the newer ones too. So I think with kids, what we're learning is like, it's like as cheesy as it sounds, it's kind of like the rule of cool. And if it comes across as a story you're trying to tell, Rakando's a great example of like somebody who just looks like what he does. Same thing with Outback. And even as crazy as they look with the range vipers, they look like bad guys, right? So I think with kids, what we're finding is like if it looks like it serves the purpose that they needed to do in their play space, you'll probably be in a good spot. I don't know if I tangented there. I tangent from time to time, so I apologize.
And also just the reactionary time that you have in making product, because it takes about, a full year almost from what you have on paper for it to hit shelf. More, yeah.
About 15.
I mean, Lenny's looking at 25, 26. So you've got comments coming in on stuff that you did about a year ago.
Yeah.
And like you can be reactionary and still kind of fit that in and look to see where you can kind of improve here and there. But you've got like a full year of product that you're coming out with and with confidence that is going to do well. And maybe you can make some adjustments when you read those kind of comments. So
Cool. Bobby?
So I'm going to with the 60th anniversary coming up, which we're all excited about. Legacy is more important than ever. I mean, we all across the brands right now, we're all seeing the legacy of different brands really kind of take center point now. Could certain classified figures be paired with an update of their 3 3/4 counterpart for like special releases?
I mean, we really can't speak to future product. I mean, I hate giving you guys that answer. But it's definitely a possibility of doing things like that. And with G.I. Joe's 60th anniversary goes beyond 3 3/4 inch, right? So you're going into like the 12 inch and like the like all that sort of stuff too. So it's kind of like there's other ways to celebrate the 60th anniversary. Again, I can't say what we would and could not do or will do. But we're always looking at the past and looking at what made the brand so great and how could we celebrate that going forward. And especially with the 60th coming up, I mean, like G.I. Joe's the original action figure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we have to do something. So I would say stay tuned.
Speaking of a legacy and originals, right? Ryan has a great question regarding that.
So with the His Tank HasLab, you guys got to work with Ron Rudat, which this will be like a 2-part type of question. So what was it like to work with Ron? And then the second part is, what is it like to take those characters that he created back in the 80s and update them to today?
It is a 2-part question. So I think the first part is the easy one. Working with Ron was cool. I mean, like as a kid, like I didn't know who he was as a kid. I mean, most of us probably didn't know who these designers were as a kid. But then when I got into the building, I found out who Ron Rudat was, and I was like, I love G.I. Joe. It's why I became a designer. It's why I'm a character designer for first and foremost. Like I've mentioned it before, I could kit bash all G.I. Joes together as a kid. I cut them apart, put them back together. I wanted to make characters, so I draw characters. But like meeting him in person, like I don't get starstruck, but I got a little like I didn't know how to speak to him because I was like, oh my God, this is the guy that indirectly kind of guided me on what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Like I didn't realize it. I didn't even know what design was until I was like 16 years old, right? So thought it was just drawings, So it was, I guess, starstruck, but at the same time really cool to like listen to this old master speak about what was cool about G.I. Joe's and what he was doing. And I think the second part of that is like it's taking in what worked back then and the elements that make a character and reiterating them for the new audience. So not necessarily the existing audience, because you do want to get them. They're very important. But at the same time, it's like, how do you iterate something so it doesn't look dated, essentially? So like the scales on Serpentor, for example, right? Like it's like they gotta look like a real Cobra, and the head of it's gotta look like a real Cobra. You know what I mean? We have the reference, we have the means to do it. Let's do it. So yeah, working with Ron was awesome. And
all right, KJ, I think you might not be able to answer the next 2 questions, but we'll ask him anyway. I think KJ has a question about 375.
Yeah, I don't know if my audio is still coming in. I'm trying to get the video, and it's always the worst freeze frame possible. But still,
I thought you were
we can hear you.
sleeping.
We
I'm
can
like,
hear
this
you.
is pretty good talk.
They
Yeah,
won't
yeah.
notice I'm asleep if I just don't move. No,
It's
well,
like the T-Rex at me and Lenny. So if
Yeah,
you're not
exactly.
moving, we don't even know you're there anymore.
It's true. It's true.
All right. Well, so my question has to do with 375, 3 3/4. As you said, like the original action figures. You can look at Marvel. They originally had Marvel Legends at 3 3/4. Star Wars team, they had Black Series as 3 3/4. So is there a possibility that we could actually see 3 3/4 figures branded as classified and released in conjunction with 6-inch, if that would help retro collection in your eyes, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think we always have the caveat we can't speak towards future product, and like this is no means me saying we're going to do that. But yeah, I think it's a possibility. We've packed things together before, like you said, on other brands and stuff like that. So we're always looking to see what works for our brand in particular. And without saying so much, not a lot of decision making, but what comes a very strong cog in the wheel of the decision making is the funds that we have and the tooling library that we are creating. And where do you hedge your bet, essentially? So again, it's like it's pushing and pulling, like everything good in life, right? It's like what is it? It's fast, good, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like one of those has got to give. So when we make stuff, it's kind of we're just paying attention to everything, and we're definitely hearing a lot of people in the 3 3/4 inch. I love 3 3/4 inch is the jam. I mean, come on. So it's just a matter of like when, how, where the funds, and then paying attention to the data that we're getting in from our like sales team and from marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It also becomes a marketing branding question as well. I had heard complaints way back about how the consumer was a little confused on Marvel Legends, and they expected a 3.75-inch figure in the mail, and they got a 6-inch or vice versa because it had that kind of confusion. So there's a little bit of that marketing kind of aspect to it. Would they want to do that, or is it a whole new kind of expression? Which I typically like a separation of branding, but that's personal opinion.
Okay.
No, that's a great point. I think you guys just answered Bobby's question, so we'll ask.
Kinda.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I was
well,
going to let
kinda.
you ask.
Well, no, because Tony did kind of, but I had with that classified branding. So we like going to y'all's like, neighbor, if you will, Star Wars. They've got retro, and you have, it's the 3 3/4,
TVC.
but it's not the TVC. Thank you, the vintage collection and retro. With classified branding, I mean, and y'all kind of all touched on this, in fact that you don't want to get it confusing, but could G.I. Joe do a TVC with a retro brand as well? Maybe under a classified label, but you could have a TVC. I mean, so I've got just like this Duke. I mean,
yeah,
these are fantastic, and just maybe like I don't know. Just what do y'all think on? What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, well, I mean, 3.75 was amazing, right? 25th anniversary or whatever we were calling them back. 2007, 2008,
Collectors Club.
Oh my God, that I actually had just gotten into Hasbro at that time, and I was in the employee store almost every day, just grabbing all of that scale. So I have an insane amount of, obviously I have an insane amount of toys, just like you guys. But it's definitely something that's celebrated in the lore, and something that we always, it's always in conversation. So obviously we can't tell you any future plans. It's blah blah blah, but it's always in the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about the cardboard elephant in the room. So how do you guys feel? We're getting windows. We're getting blister packaging back for classified. I know specific adult collector lines, like Black Series and Lightning Collection, like they kind of Marvel Legends and whatnot. But will it look like the original packaging? How do you guys feel about this now? I mean, some of us are just starting to kind of like the newest art, but we're not going to say no to windows.
I think it's multiple part that question, and we kind of have to give you a little bit of a canned answer, I think. But for the most part, it was exciting to troubleshoot or design, essentially problem solve for what the plastic free was going to be. And on G.I. Joe, one of the like really cool things about G.I. Joe is like gear. And it was like, what are we gonna do with the gear? We got to figure out something for the gear. And that's where I think it was a meeting. I was like, weapon crates. And I was like, you get them out. They got their name on there. And then we started brainstorming. Like one of the packaging designers was like, yo, it'd be awesome if it has like their name on it and a code. So that's the really fun part about G.I. Joe in general, like the amount of innovation that we kind of like put forth and kind of in the forefront of everything we do. So that was really fun to do, and it was really cool to do. But then I think I went on a tangent again. But at the same time, I am excited actually about the Windows too, because it does post a lot of opportunities from a product design standpoint that we had to essentially walk away from with our other initiative.
Cool. Ryan?
So my last question is, with looking at how you're building out the tooling library and how the tooling is being used, how does that affect your decision on which characters you're going to work on for those waves?
So it does a lot. So I use my tooling a little differently than the other teams. I'm very aesthetic minded from an action figure standpoint. So like for me, like even the build of a character, I won't use a tool from another character to make another character, if that makes sense. Like if somebody's too jacked, I don't think the other character should be that jacked. It's kind of like it's a character trait. So we do try to keep it in mind when it comes to particular parts, but then we'll make new parts to make a said character. So I don't want to say too much because this is kind of a trade secret to talk about how we plan the year out, but there is planning involved where I kind of like stir the cauldron and see where all the money is going to fall, and then where we could push and pull, and then where we could maybe finesse a character or update a character or drop a character for something else that's actually that can help the full year, because a lot of that stuff comes into play too, where like sometimes we've had characters in the hopper that were like, yes, it's gonna be sick, and then we've had to cancel it 2 years in a row because it's not going to help the overall, which it's like super frustrating, but you kind of have to think of the greater good sometimes.
But that reuse just the reuse is such a toy legacy. I mean, look at the original 3.75, right? All the O-rings, where I mean, you saw a lot of reuse there, right? So, I mean, the best part about working on the classified line is that Lenny's changing the proportions and giving those kind of different looks to each guy, which is amazing. But the toy business was built on reuse, right? That's across company, that's across toy, that's across everything.
Absolutely. Looks like we have to do a kind of a speed round, but we'll go to KJ real quick, and then Bobby, and then me, and close off.
Okay. I place classified right up there with MoffX and SHF. You guys are killing it.
Wow. Thank you.
Transformers has Masterpiece. Black Series has Hyperreal. Oh, what do you feel about a premium version of Classified strictly for adult collectors?
Would be rad.
For sure. We're already cramming quite a bit of stuff in these packages, but maybe upgrading materials, things like that. Is that kind of where you're going?
Oh yeah, soft goods, diecast.
There's one thing that Hasbro pushes and repeats in our brains almost daily multiple times is innovation. And how do you take it to that next step? And maybe it is premium, maybe it is kid, maybe it is a scale change. You know, it's like constant pressure to innovate, which is great because it keeps it fresh, not only for the consumer, hopefully, but also for us as contributors. So awesome. Definitely a cool suggestion.
Awesome. I love that stuff. Please don't take the angry freeze frame.
You didn't freeze frame. You didn't freeze frame for me.
Oh, okay, good.
You good?
Yeah, don't mind. Awesome.
All right,
I'm saying that
Bobby's got
your angry freeze frame.
That's his new profile picture. Bobby, you got a HasLab question.
I do. Hey, so the his tank, I mean, to say that it was a success is an understatement. Like that thing was just mind-blowingly like amazing before we even got any like the the tiers or like done. Before, how much convincing did Hasbro need on that HISS tank, and has this success made it easier for future GI Joe HasLabs, or for the vehicles, i.e. Skyhawk, Desert Vamp, Cobra Fang, etc.?
Stinger, Ostriker.
I would say it has made it easier to sell in, right? Because when one success happens, especially on lines that are collector lines, where the business is to kind of dive deep into the world of play, which as a designer gets me excited because we get to do the world of play of GI Joe, and the best way to do that is with vehicles. So it definitely is easier to sell it in. And I think where we saw the success was actually the Sky Striker, where the potential of the brand was seen, right? Where like it was like we sold through the Sky Striker and we got super excited. Hasbro was like, this classified line is doing really well. How can we support classified? And Emily and I were like, HISS tank. I mean, there's a website dedicated to it. You know what I mean? So
that was a no-brainer.
Yeah, it was it's kind of like GI Joe's TIE Fighter in a way, right? So it's like a very iconic vehicle to the brand. So yeah, I think it definitely opened up the avenues to actually get into that stuff. And I would say just keep an eye out for future stuff.
Not to mention the fact that it absolutely smashed HasLab in the first like 24 hours or something. That
it was so heartening,
dude. Confidence. So anyone watching this, if there's another HasLab, jump on it.
Help us.
Help us out.
Well, it's very heartening too, because like we put a lot of time and dedication into this brand. So when we see stuff like that, it like gets us supercharged and excited. And just seeing it, man, it means a lot. So I want to just thank everybody who's listening. That really meant the world to us, and we're going to try to do the best product we can going forward, and we're going to keep on doing what we can to make these things awesome. So again, thank you.
Cool. Before we go, I got to ask, because it's the first time I met you, we're going to see you guys at Comic-Con again, just around the corner once again, San Diego.
We can't confirm through Hasbro because again, all that stuff is still up in the air on our end, so we can't really confirm if we're going or not.
But I have been told, like we definitely want to. In previous years, I've been told the week before that I'm going. So
that's usually when we find out too.
Like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully we get to see everybody again. I always love talking to people, hear their comments at conventions and things like that. What they like, what they don't like, what they want to see, even if it's just like, what's your favorite character? I could sit there and talk about favorite characters all day. I love hearing people's top 10s and just reminiscing about all this awesome stuff. So
just the feeling of community was awesome. Meeting you guys last year was incredible. That meeting was super fun to do. It was hectic. It was loud. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, we loved it. And we need to have more of those so I can review another early figure for you guys.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, no, that'll be great. But hey, thanks so much for your time. This was just a very engaging, wonderful conversation. So I really appreciate it. Tony and Lenny, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. I definitely want to echo what Lenny said earlier. Thanks for everybody buying into the line, spending that hard-earned money on collecting stuff that we want to collect as well, and that we
basically what's going on.
We're just making stuff for ourselves. And I'm glad you guys like it. But thank you guys, appreciate it.
And you guys are killing it. So please, thank you for all the hard work that you guys have been putting in. I think we need to tell creators when they're doing amazing stuff that it's amazing. So thank you for all the hard work you guys have been doing.
And I'd be remiss too if we didn't talk about everybody else behind us. There's about
God,
how many more people behind us?
Our engineers, man, we couldn't do it without them. And it's like they crank. So like the late nights, I wish they can get more. Well, they don't want it. A lot of them, they want it. Like you guys know, more from HasLab wants nothing to do with all this stuff. So, but they do it for the love of it, and it's like just having people enjoy it is thanks enough for a lot of us. So very cool.
Yeah, me and Leno promised to give out hugs in the halls for all the adulation that you guys have given us. Thank you guys from everyone behind us as well. Thank you.
course, salute to that. All right, well, that was episode 120, we think, of A Toy Kind of Mood, and welcome to the Drome episode 17 combo big special. It was the Hasbro Joe team takeover, and certainly they did. We love talking with them. We hope you enjoy the interview as well, and we'll see you guys in the toy aisle or at Comic-Con.
Peace.
See ya.
Peace.
Bye, everyone.
Peace.